A storm rages through a desolate forest. Through the downpour, figures in armor emerge. A holy knight has cornered his prey, a lone figure in rags. The knight's voice is filled with contempt, accusing him of countless sins. He declares that the vampire's time is finally up, and that he will be the one to end him. The vampire is condemned for deceiving the church. The knight seems to be enjoying this a little too much. He reveals a cruel truth. They could have caught him at any time. They let him run free, a pawn in their game, all to make his capture a grand spectacle for the faithful. He understood this world's cruel logic all too well. The strong dictate the fate of the weak. And in this moment, he was the weaker one. His life flashes before his eyes, a question hanging in the air. The knight proclaims his very existence a stain on their holy image. A final, desperate thought echoes in the void, a wish for a second chance. And then he wakes up, gasping for air. He's in a familiar, crude shelter, completely bewildered. He remembers the feeling of a blade tearing through him, yet he's whole, untouched, convinced he had died. He recognizes this place, his old hideout. The markings on the wall confirm his suspicion. This is the past. Somehow, impossibly, he has returned. He clenches his fist, a fire igniting in his soul. This is his second chance, starting in a remote forest. As where a weak vampire named Eugene once hid from the world, he was always found no matter how well he hid. For 12 long years, he survived on the blood of beasts, paralyzed by fear. He knows hiding will only lead to the same end. His only choice is to become untouchably strong. So Eugene decides to change his survival strategy. A vampire absorbs power through blood, and the stronger the source, the greater the power gained. He feels a powerful presence nearby, and there it is. The master of this forest, a monstrous beast, lunges from the trees. And our boy's reaction? A big, toothy grin. Totally normal. The beast fires energy blasts from its glowing eyes. He knows his current body is too weak to fight it head-on. But if he can just land a single wound, he can drink its blood. His old life was all about erasing his presence. But knowing that hiding is a dead end, he has no reason to hesitate. His fangs bare as he commits to the fight. He will fight more desperately than anyone else. And with a roar, he drives his sword into the creature's hide. He stares in disbelief as his sword shatters on impact. The beast retaliates with a vicious tail swipe, sending Eugene flying through the swamp. He lands hard, clutching a fresh wound. But the fire in his eyes hasn't dimmed one bit. The beast roars, ready to finish him off. He recalls that these creatures are roamers, wild predators of the wilderness. He knows that if he could get its mana crystal, he might have a chance. But the difference in strength is just too overwhelming. He wonders if this second chance made him careless. But as the beast's jaws close in, he rejects the thought. He's never been arrogant. His entire life was spent crawling, holding his breath, doing anything just to survive. But now he chooses to fight in order to live. He knows there is no next time after defeat. With everything he has, he reaches for the mana crystal. Because for him, survival has always meant standing on the blood of others. The forest falls silent under the pale moon, and a sudden explosion of power rocks the swamp. He remembers the promise he made to himself, that with this second chance he would never run again. And now, standing amidst the carnage, he will seize both blood and victory. The battle is over, and Eugene is the last one standing. He absorbed not just the blood, but the mana crystal too, granting him a new power, skin that turns to black scales. He recalls his past life, learning of this beast from mercenaries. He'd used their fight as a distraction to get a taste and escape. But this new power isn't enough to face his true enemy yet. The holy knight who could find him anywhere, no matter what. The sun will rise soon. He needs to find shelter. But a mysterious voice echoes through the clearing. It thanks him for killing the beast, but demands a price. Eugene looks around, searching for the source. A being of pure water emerges, the lake's true guardian, and she is not happy about the mess he's made. Suddenly, a tiny voice calls him a bald vampire. Charming. The little spirit is shocked that he can even see it. Eugene, completely unfazed, just asks who it is. The spirit confirms he heard everything, including the insult. She introduces herself as Mirian, a water spirit enslaved by the beast. Or, as she puts it, a strategic partner. Sure, let's go with that. As she rambles on, Eugene notices something strange. One of his new tattoos is fading. Mirian asks about his tattoos, which he admits are a mystery even to him. He's had them since he became a vampire, remembering a time when there were 10. His early memories are a blur, his life consumed by the simple act of survival. With that, Eugene decides it's time to leave, much to the spirit's dismay. She complains that it's been ages since she had anyone to talk to. She tries to entice him with an offer of pure water, calling him a pale, beautiful man. She insists her special water will do wonders for his complexion, and then proceeds to spit it at him, an offer Eugene promptly refuses. She desperately lists her other skills, but he's already walking away. His journey takes him to the nearby Broadwind village, where a villager bursts in, announcing the arrival of the red-eyed monster. The townsfolk gather outside, staring in disbelief. Before them lies a massive pile of hunted game. It's more meat than they've seen in a long time. The village chief is confused. The monster's delivery isn't due for another week. This monster is a mysterious figure who lives on the outskirts. For 10 years, he's been a silent neighbor, leaving them food every fortnight. Tonight, however, he asks for permission to enter the village. Though they were once terrified, they've grown accustomed to his strange form of paying taxes. The villagers nervously greet the familiar, yet unknown figure. Eugene announces that after a long time in isolation, his sickness is finally gone. He's come to thank them for their indirect help and wishes to return the favor. As he speaks, he removes his hood and mask. He promises to protect the village should they ever need him, and reveals a face so handsome it literally sparkles. The villagers are completely stunned, blinded by the sudden glow-up. They wonder if this radiant being was a noble, or perhaps a half-elf. The chief can't believe this was the man behind the mask all along. Later, Miriam questions Eugene's motives for giving away his hunt. He explains that showing one's face is an act of good faith among humans. But Miriam reveals a grim truth from the future. Mercenaries came to this village to kidnap a boy for a local lord, and to ensure there were no witnesses, they slaughtered everyone. This event is the trigger that will eventually lead the Holy Knights to him. Miriam is stunned, wondering how he could possibly know all this. Even after days together, Eugene remains a complete mystery to her. He simply tells her she'll find out if he's lying soon enough. For now, his first step is to gain the villagers' trust and appear harmless, a plan that makes absolutely no sense to the little spirit. But as they walk, Eugene suddenly stops in his tracks. Miriam nearly crashes into him, completely confused. Just ahead, a group of armed mercenaries blocks the path. They spot Eugene, dismissing him as just another villager. Their leader smirks, noting that this handsome man has stumbled into their ambush. Seeing him alone and unarmed, they decide to silence him quickly. One of them rushes forward, axe raised high. Miriam cries out in warning, but Eugene remains perfectly calm. The mercenary brings his weapon down with killing intent, but his target's eyes glow with an unnatural red light. In a blur of motion, the attacker is cut down. As the mercenaries stare in shock, Eugene continues his explanation to Miriam. He needs to build trust so that he doesn't seem suspicious. And to do that, he's going to kill every last one of these mercenaries. Solid plan. The men finally realize he's not human, shouting that he's a vampire. But one sees this as an opportunity for a huge reward from the church. He charges forward, swinging his greatsword, only for the blade to be stopped cold by Eugene's transformed hand. The mercenary's confidence shatters in an instant. Eugene sends him flying back with a single, effortless blow. The remaining men can only watch in terror as their plan falls apart. The mercenaries realize this is no ordinary vampire. But one, blinded by greed, charges in to claim the bounty. He's cut down before he even gets close. Another one steps up, swinging a heavy spiked mace. But the blow is stopped cold by Eugene's scaled arm. The man can only stare in utter disbelief. Eugene calmly notes that the sun is setting, and with a single brutal counterattack, he sends another man to the ground. He stands over the fallen, declaring that night is his domain. The survivors are urged to attack him all at once. Just then, the villagers arrive, drawn by the commotion. They can only stare in horror at the carnage before them. The chief turns to Eugene, asking if he's responsible. Eugene calmly denies it, spinning a convenient tale. He claims these men were ambushed on their way to the village, and that the culprits were a pack of black wolves. He explains that he simply drove off the beasts. A villager inspects a body and confirms the story. Another one shouts that they were all attacked by wolves. The chief, convinced, apologizes for his suspicion. But Miriam knows the truth, calling him a liar in her mind. She recalls how the wolves appeared after the fight, and how Eugene used their bodies to stage the scene. Our boy's got a future in theater. Miriam can't understand why he's so obsessed with his image. She senses there's a deeper plan at play. Eugene then presents a letter he supposedly found. The chief recognizes the seal of the local lord, Sir Terwin. His expression turns to one of pure shock as he reads. He desperately calls out for a villager named Felid. The letter reveals a shocking secret. Felid is Sir Terwin's illegitimate son, and the villagers realize the mercenaries were here to kidnap a noble in their midst. Back in the forest, the mercenary leader recalls his utter shock. He couldn't believe how fast Eugene had cut down his men. His remaining soldiers knew that retreat meant certain death. Their only hope was to swarm the monster all at once. But the leader was paralyzed by fear, unable to even run, as Eugene moved through them like a phantom of death. His eyes burned with a cold, predatory light. He met the leader's final charge with overwhelming force, sending the man crashing hard against a tree. Now Eugene stands over the last survivor. The man can only beg for his life amidst the carnage. He asks why Eugene targeted them, if this was all a trap. He pleads that they were only following orders. Eugene's voice is ice as he demands to know their mission, claiming the village as his own. The leader quickly apologizes, swearing they weren't hunting his kind. He confesses they were sent to find the hidden son of the Terwin family. But Eugene sees through the lie, questioning why so many men were needed. He asks if their true plan was to silence every witness. The man breaks, admitting they were hired by other members of the Terwin family. Their mission was simply to kidnap the boy, bringing extra muscle just in case. But one name from the confession ignites a familiar rage in Eugene's soul. Verthel Tyrwin, the commander of the vampire hunters who ended his first life. He realizes Verthel wouldn't have ordered a massacre. That was the mercenaries' own greed. And that massacre is what led the paladins right to his doorstep in the past. The leader continues to beg, swearing he would have stayed away if he'd known. Eugene turns his back, telling him to watch for wolves on his way out. A little parting advice. The man can't believe his luck, stammering out his thanks for the mercy shown. Mercy that never comes. Mirian questions his ruthlessness, but Eugene is resolute. He explains that the man knows his secret and cannot be allowed to live. Besides, the wolves are already here and they look hungry. Back in the village, the chief confirms the mercenaries' mission. The townsfolk panic, realizing the Lord's men were killed on their watch. Eugene steps forward, offering to escort the boy himself. The chief is stunned, unable to ask such a thing of him. But Eugene insists, claiming a knight would never refuse to help. Our boy's got some nerve. Mirian can't believe what she's hearing. The villagers are completely floored by the mention of a knight. Even Mirian is losing her cool, shouting his name in disbelief. Eugene offers a formal and completely fabricated introduction. He presents himself as Jan Eugene of the noble house Eugene. He repeats his apology for the late introduction, but the villagers are still skeptical of this sudden revelation. The crowd erupts into whispers, some even defending his honor. Mirian thinks he's gone too far, but Eugene explains his logic. These simple folk have never met a noble. They won't know the difference. And just like that, they're hooked, bombarding him with questions. He gives a vague but convincing story about his life in seclusion. The chief laments their inability to reward him, but Eugene has a simple request. He only asks for a place to rest, an offer the chief happily accepts. The next morning, Eugene looks out over the quiet village. He examines his hand, recalling the power he gained from the forest master. His eyes glow with the beast's predatory light. The black scales spread across his skin. He discovers they offer some protection from the sun, a welcome surprise. Mirian, however, is quick to point out a flaw in his noble persona. He can't read. Eugene isn't concerned, as he plans to leave soon anyway. But Mirian presses him, demanding to know his true goal. He explains to Mirian that he's already gained social status, because humans trust authority more than any fancy words. Mirian points out that this flimsy lie will only work on simple villagers. But Eugene is determined to turn this lie into the absolute truth. The chief hands him a letter of introduction, asking him to take care of Felid. The boy in question steps forward, introducing himself as Felid. Eugene greets him, his mind already plotting to use the boy to become a real noble. And so, with the villagers' blessing, their journey begins. They travel through the wilderness, eventually spotting a town in the distance. Felid confirms it's their destination, surprising Eugene with his ability to read. The boy explains that his mother, though of low status, was taught by someone she loved. He never knew that person was a noble, and Mirian sees an opportunity for Eugene. Eugene promptly asks Felid to teach him how to read, much to the boy's shock. Felid is confused, wondering how a knight could be illiterate. Eugene spins a sob story about his fallen family and a life of combat. And with that, they continue on their way. Eugene's strategy is simple. Let them doubt, then make them believe. Mirian has to admit his acting is top-notch, but she warns him that too many lies could backfire. A quick glance at Felid, however, shows the boy is already completely sold. Felid apologizes, admitting he was suspicious of Eugene at first. He confesses that the villagers calling him a monster had biased him, but now he'll judge for himself, accepting that a warrior might neglect his studies. He even offers to teach Eugene in secret to avoid any embarrassment. As Felid asks to learn more, a glint appears in Eugene's eye. Suddenly, a blade flashes past Felid's face. The boy recoils in terror, a throwing knife embedded in the rock beside him. They've walked right into an ambush on the narrow mountain path. A group of armed thugs emerges, looking for trouble. Felid's eyes widen in terror as he realizes they're bandits. The leader smirks, confirming the boy's fear. He orders them to hand over their belongings or else, but before he can finish his threat, Eugene is already moving. In a flash of red, the bandit leader is cut down. Felid can only watch in shock as his protector becomes a blur. The remaining thugs cry out as their boss falls. Eugene feels his body move with a new, nimble speed. An enraged bandit charges forward, swinging a crude axe, but he's met with the same swift, brutal efficiency. Eugene carves a path through the ambushers. One of them stumbles back, desperately calling for help, but there is no escape from the hooded figure. His plea is cut short by a final, decisive strike. In moments, the mountain path is littered with the fallen. Eugene wonders why humans prey on those weaker than them. He questions if weakness is an invitation for torment. He asks Felid if learning to read will help him understand such things. The boy is frozen, splattered with the evidence of the fight. He covers his mouth, trying to process the brutal scene. Eugene promises that no matter what, he will keep the boy safe. After the grim encounter, they finally arrive at a bustling town. A merchant loudly advertises rare herbs from a recent dungeon raid. Nearby, a customer argues with a shopkeeper over prices. Miriam is thrilled by the new sights, but Felid urges caution. He explains that the merchants here are notorious for ripping people off. As if on cue, a man demands a refund for an overpriced item. Eugene notes that being careful is a luxury he can't afford without any money. He tells Felid to wait as he steps into a leather goods shop. He presents a massive pelt, asking the shopkeeper to name his price. The shopkeeper recognizes the pelts as Black Wolf leather, a rare find in these parts. He gives the hooded figure a sharp, calculating look. Eugene remains perfectly still, his face hidden in shadow. The man sizes him up, noting the worn clothes of a simple wanderer. He grins, thinking this stranger will be easy to swindle. He claims the leather is damaged, offering a measly 18 silver coins. A true master of the lowball. But from under the hood, a pair of red eyes flashes with silent intensity. The shopkeeper recoils, startled by the sudden, unnerving gaze. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as the pressure mounts. He quickly changes his tune, admitting the rarity could justify a higher price. But Eugene's silent stare is all the answer he gets. The man nervously raises his offer to 23 coins, calling it a generous deal. The glowing red eye tells him he's still not even close. He stammers, upping the price again to 25 coins. Even Felid starts nervously bidding against him from the side. The merchant fumes, wondering just how much this silent stranger expects. He finally cracks, offering 30 silver coins as his absolute limit, which Eugene accepts. Later that night, by a campfire, Eugene practices his reading. He thinks the letters look like worms, admitting he has a long way to go. The strange script seems to mock him from the page. He reflects on his new practical clothes, a far cry from the silk robes of vampire lore. He's satisfied with the deal, but Miriam calls the merchant a pushover. She recalls the negotiation, thinking Eugene should have squeezed him for even more. Our girl's got a future in finance. Eugene simply says he needed something to block the sun, prompting Miriam to scold him for his lack of ambition. She paints a grand picture of the vampire life, luxury, power, and endless servants. Eugene asks how she knows so much, and she explains that other spirits told her stories. She passes on their wisdom, urging him to learn, then asks if he can even read. He bluntly says no. He asks what else she's good for, just as Felid calls out his name. The boy approaches, asking who Eugene was talking to. Eugene smoothly covers, claiming he was just talking to himself. Miriam notes the recent fight was a bit much for the boy. But Felid wakes up, ready for their late-night study session. He eagerly offers to teach Eugene as much as he wants. And so, the lessons continue by the warmth of the fire. Eugene is picking it up surprisingly fast, much to his own shock. Felid explains that it normally takes a year to learn what Eugene has mastered in hours. Eugene wonders if this will be enough for Felid's new life as a noble. The boy admits the whole situation still feels like a dream. He doesn't even expect a warm welcome from his estranged father. Just then, their quiet night is interrupted by approaching riders. A man in armor greets them, asking to share their campsite. A classic nothing to see here entrance. Eugene is instantly on guard, his hand hovering near his weapon. The man notes their group includes a child and asks their destination. Knowing a lie would be too risky, Eugene tells him the truth. The mercenary leader claims they're headed the same way, offering to share their supplies. But one of his men, a blonde-haired youth, seems to object to this generosity. Eugene's suspicion grows, his eyes fixed on the newcomers. The leader apologizes for his subordinate's rudeness. He introduces himself as Partek, prompting Eugene to repeat his knight persona. The younger mercenary scoffs, openly questioning Eugene's claim. He points out the lack of a horse or proper armor. He gets right in Eugene's face, demanding he admit he's a fraud. His expression turns menacing as he accuses Eugene of lying, but his finger is stopped cold just inches from Eugene's face. Eugene knows he's cornered, but he also senses their questions are just a pretense. He calmly calculates his odds, realizing he could take them all if it comes to a fight. His hand transforms, gripping the young mercenary's wrist. But before he can act, the captain's own eye flashes with a strange light. And with incredible speed, Partek strikes his own man, sending the loud-mouthed mercenary flying through the air. Well, that's one way to shut someone up. Partek immediately apologizes for his rookie's blatant disrespect. Eugene accepts, telling them to just find a place to settle down. But he knows this lie will only attract more suspicion down the road. As the mercenaries set up their own camp, the young recruit is still reeling. The blonde mercenary, Raban, struggles to understand what just happened. He gets to his feet, only to be berated by his captain for being an idiot. Partek lectures him on the foolishness of challenging a knight so recklessly. He even gives him another smack for good measure, reminding him they all nearly died. Raban argues that Eugene just looked like a shabby traveler with a cheap sword, so Partek decides to give him a lesson in observation, starting with the robe. He explains it's made of expensive lycanthrope leather, a price that amounts to 3 times Raban's monthly salary. He adds that Eugene is literate, proving he's no ordinary wanderer. Partek reveals that Eugene was a hair's breadth from drawing his sword, and he explains exactly how he could tell what was about to happen. The man's stance was perfect, his hand already on his weapon, a posture that showed he was a master swordsman, ready to strike. He tells Raban that if he'd been any slower, the boy would have lost his head. Partek asks if he truly understands how terrifying knights are. He describes the life of a true knight, born to nobility, trained from birth, and tested in dungeons. They are warriors who build their reputation on the battlefield. Only those who have proven themselves in blood can earn the title, and impersonating one is a crime punishable by death. He concludes that whether Eugene is real or fake, he's dangerous, because anyone who would dare make such a claim must have the skills to back it up. Raban asks if Eugene could be stronger than him, and Partek admits it's likely. He notes their shared destination, suspecting Eugene is after a newly opened dungeon. But from across the camp, Eugene has heard every single word. He wonders why the Terwins hired incompetent thugs before, when mercenaries like these exist. And with a new plan forming, he gets up and walks right towards them. Raban stammers his agreement, completely intimidated by his captain. Their journey eventually leads them to the bustling city of Martella. Eugene knows the mercenaries are convinced, a fact he plans to exploit. But as he considers his next move, Mirian zips up to his ear. She reports back from her little eavesdropping mission. The intel is grim. Lord Terwin is on his deathbed. And a new unexplored dungeon has just been discovered nearby. A potential gold mine that the Terwin family is too broke to handle. Eugene files this information away as Mirian interrupts his thoughts. She asks what will happen to Felid once his father is gone. Eugene's response is cold. It's not his problem. Mirian presses, worried the boy will be targeted by his own brothers. Eugene believes the old lord just wants one last look at his son, but he knows that from this moment on, both their fates are intertwined. With that, their wagon finally rolls to a stop. They've arrived at the gates of the magnificent Rose Castle. Mirian is already dreaming big, urging Eugene to aim for a life of luxury. Our girl has priorities. He quickly shoves the spirit back into his cloak, much to Felid's confusion. A guard immediately halts their approach, demanding their business. Partek steps forward to handle the introductions with a man in fine clothes. The man introduces himself as Kamara, the eldest son of House Terwin. He impatiently orders the mercenaries to start unloading their cargo. His dismissive gaze then falls on Eugene and Felid. Eugene calmly introduces himself as a knight, about to present the boy. But another voice cuts through the air, calling out to Kamara. Eugene freezes, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. The newcomer, clad in armor, reminds his brother of his duties. He wears the 3-rose crest of the Terwin family, and Eugene knows he could never forget that voice. It's the commander of the vampire hunters, the man who first found him. Knight Verthel Terwin, the man who ended his first life. He questions his brother, the second son of House Terwin. Kamara retorts with a smug grin, mocking his authority, but Verthel's expression remains deadly serious. His attention then shifts to the hooded figure. Eugene presents the letter from the village chief. The name Broadwin catches Verthel completely off guard. He reaches for the letter, his suspicion piqued, but Kamara snatches it first, ever the opportunist. He reads it with a look of theatrical curiosity. He announces the news. The mercenaries are dead, and this is their long-lost brother. Felid stands frozen, caught in the middle of this noble drama. Kamara offers a less than sincere welcome to his new sibling. Verthel, however, tells the boy their father is eager to see him. He orders the guards to get Felid cleaned up and properly dressed. The boy is led away, looking back in confusion. But Verthel stops in his tracks, sensing the conversation isn't over. He turns, his gaze locking onto the mysterious escort. Eugene speaks up, demanding his reward, a meeting with Lord Terwin. Verthel's refusal is instant and absolute. He explains their father is unwell and offers gold instead, but Eugene's glowing red eye tells him that won't be enough. Verthel's patience snaps, warning him not to push his luck. As the tension rises, Eugene calmly asks why he's being denied. Kamara steps in, happily fanning the flames of conflict. Verthel argues their father is too weak to meet with a stranger. The brothers face off, their family drama on full display. Verthel seems to notice something just out of frame. Kamara turns to Eugene, blaming his brother for the inconvenience. He dismisses Eugene and leads Felid away for a tour of the castle. Eugene realizes Verthel never intended to let him see the Lord, but their standoff is interrupted by a loud, new voice. A red-haired warrior arrives, carrying a familiar face. He dumps the unconscious mercenaries at Verthel's feet. He suggests a rather permanent form of discipline. Verthel acknowledges they were hired for the dungeon raid. He decides to table the discussion for a more private setting. Partek identifies the newcomer as Sir Galfredic, a rising star who recently proved his worth in a tournament, a man known for his monstrous strength and skill. He single-handedly swept through 1,000 opponents. Partek speculates he's here for the newly discovered dungeon. After all, conquering a dungeon is a fast track to fame and glory. He's likely using this as a stepping stone to a greater house. With that information filed away, Eugene turns to Partek. He asks the mercenary captain if he's looking for a new client. Later that night, within the castle walls, Galfredic reaffirms his commitment to conquering the dungeon. Verthel watches from his office, lost in thought. He knows his brother Kamara is making a power play, using Sir Galfredic to secure the dungeon and the family title. As Verthel wonders how to counter this move, a knock echoes. A servant announces a visitor, Sir Eugene. Verthel recalls the mysterious knight and grants him entry. Eugene enters the study, his presence filling the room. Verthel offers a warm welcome, assuring him Felid is safe. He even thanks Eugene for handing him the letter earlier, a seemingly genuine smile on his face. But Eugene cuts through the pleasantries with a sharp remark. Verthel's friendly demeanor instantly vanishes. Eugene lets out a short, dismissive laugh, and Verthel responds with a full-throated roar of amusement. He admits that Eugene is far more interesting than he first thought. Eugene simply bows his head, waiting for the real conversation to start. Verthel leans in, questioning if he's truly a knight. He asks if Eugene is trying to join the dungeon raid to clean up his image, and why he should even be allowed. Eugene counters, calling it a harmless offer. Verthel demands to know what he means. Eugene lays out his terms. A small fee and half the loot, excluding the valuable mana stones. The offer is so good, Verthel is immediately suspicious. But Eugene flips the script, reminding him who's really in a corner. Verthel is taken aback by his confidence. Eugene repeats his offer, clarifying it's for him and his new mercenary crew. Verthel notes the price is well below market rate, but Eugene just presses for an answer. In his mind, Verthel reasons that knights live for honor. He concludes this wandering knight isn't after money, but glory. A classic hero complex, or so he thinks. He recalls the information he's gathered on this mysterious man. Eugene reminds him that he's not the one in a hurry. The pressure is on and Verthel knows it. He thinks of his brother's new champion, Sir Galfredic. He realizes Eugene is no fool. This man knows exactly how to play his hand. And with that, Verthel agrees to the deal. Later, Partek explains the finer points of their new arrangement. He tells Eugene that mana crystals are a hassle, but the byproducts are pure profit. He offers to connect Eugene with a trusted trading company, a move that will force the greedy older brother, Kamara, to accept their terms. Elsewhere, Kamara scoffs at the news of a new party member. He complains about this last-minute addition, declaring a dungeon is no playground. It's a place where the weak are left for dead. He dismisses the newcomer, having no faith in any knight his brother would recruit. Verthel apologizes to Galfredic for the delay. He was just chatting with his new recruit. And with a flourish, he introduces Knight Jan Eugene. Galfredic recognizes the hooded figure from the gate. He smirks, telling Kamara they can't accept an unknown. But Verthel steps in, vouching for Eugene's skill. He explains that he heard a rather interesting story about the bandits who were plaguing their territory and how Eugene single-handedly wiped them out. He holds up a dagger, declaring his skills are more than enough. But Galfredik decides he needs a demonstration. He hurls a warhammer with blinding speed. Eugene's eye flashes as the weapon closes in. He deflects it with a single, precise slash. The hammer smashes into the wall behind him. Galfredik lets out an impressed grin. Eugene stands his ground, completely unfazed. The red-haired knight offers a backhanded apology for his rudeness, and then challenges him to a duel to prove his worth, because talking is for chumps. The scene is set in the castle courtyard, a crowd already gathered. The news spreads like wildfire. Sir Galfredik is dueling. Everyone is eager to see the tournament champion in action. They say he can tear monsters apart with his bare hands, totally normal human stuff. The two opponents face each other in the torchlight. The crowd already feels sorry for the mysterious challenger, but Eugene remains perfectly calm, waiting for the signal. Galfredik flashes a wide, confident grin. He plants his massive greatsword into the stone ground. His expression shifts, the smile vanishing in an instant. His eyes narrow, filled with a cold, focused intensity. A bell tolls, signaling the start of the duel. And in an instant, Eugene explodes from his position. Their blades meet in a blinding flash of sparks. The sound of steel on steel echoes through the courtyard. They trade blows with incredible speed, a blur of motion. Galfredik grins, beckoning him forward. He's clearly enjoying himself. But Eugene's focus remains unbroken. He unleashes a relentless flurry of attacks. In the crowd, Rabin cheers, thinking the champion is being overwhelmed. But Partek knows better. Galfredik is just testing his opponent. The red-haired knight's smile fades as he analyzes Eugene's style. He finds it crude, unrefined, with no formal training. He senses not a knight, but a wild animal fighting to survive. Eugene presses the attack, his movements raw and unpredictable. Galfredik blocks the blow, his confidence returning. He calls out the lie, noting the sloppy stance and lack of discipline. Eugene's only response is that the man talks too much. Galfredik tells him to prove it, promising to shut up if he's defeated. The duel intensifies, their swords clashing once more. The impact sends shudders through both their arms, but Galfredik's raw power begins to show. As he breaks through Eugene's guard with a brutal kick, he follows up instantly, giving Eugene no time to recover. Another powerful blow connects, sending our boy flying. The impact shatters the stone courtyard beneath him. Raban celebrates, thinking the fight is already over. A bit premature, buddy, but through the dust, a figure slowly rises. Eugene's eye glows as he asks who they think passed out. He lunges forward, a phantom of pure black rage, and Galfredik can only just manage to block the sudden, vicious counterattack. Galfredik is shocked, realizing his opponent learns mid-fight. He dodges a swift kick, his grin never leaving his face. Eugene's movements are a blur of raw, untamed speed. He presses the attack, relentless and unpredictable. Galfredik meets his blade, clearly enjoying the challenge. Their swords clash in a shower of brilliant sparks. They become a whirlwind of steel, a dance of deadly intent. For a moment, they're perfectly matched, two predators sizing each other up. The fight shifts to brutal hand-to-hand combat. Galfredik catches his arm, stunned by Eugene's impossible strength. He's forced to admit that in raw power, this stranger surpasses him, but he knows strength isn't everything in a fight. He uses his superior experience to throw Eugene off balance. Eugene's stance breaks for the first time. He stumbles backward, completely exposed. Galfredik sees his opening and winds up for a finishing blow. Eugene can only look up as the attack comes down. The ground shatters under the force of the punch. Galfredik follows through with a devastating kick. Eugene's eye widens, his instincts screaming. The blow connects, sending him hurtling across the courtyard. Galfredik notes his opponent's lack of formal training, but his survival instincts are on a whole other level. Just as his fist closes in, Galfredik admits his own defeat. Eugene's scaled arm blocks the final attack with ease, and with a single explosive counter, he sends the champion flying. Galfredik crashes hard into the castle wall. He lies in the rubble, staring up at the night sky, completely defeated. The crowd is stunned into silence, unable to process what they just saw. And the winner is declared Knight Jan Eugene. The crowd erupts, unable to believe what they've just seen. Raban proudly cheers for their knight. He's a fan for life, apparently. Galfredik lies defeated amidst the rubble of the courtyard, but his eyes open, a flicker of life still in them. He looks up at the man who so thoroughly bested him, and with a surge of energy, he rises to his feet. Eugene watches, ready for whatever comes next. Galfredik grabs his hand and raises it high, declaring him the winner. The courtyard chants his name, celebrating the new champion. But from the crowd, Kamara can only stare in utter disbelief. Later, a grand feast is laid out in Eugene's honor. The castle staff is all smiles, ready to serve their new guest. But Eugene looks less than thrilled with all the attention. A butler explains this is a gift from Lord Kamara himself. Miriam listens as they fuss over every little detail. She mocks the gesture as Eugene politely refuses the meal. The servants look crestfallen by his sudden rejection. He tells them to inform Kamara that he prefers solitude. The next day, Kamara greets him with a practiced smile. He notes that Eugene refused all his generous gifts. Just then, Robin rushes in, bowing eagerly to his new hero. He's followed by Galfredic, who's acting like his new best friend. The red-haired knight complains about his sore face. He points to his bruise, laughing it off completely. He's already asking for a rematch, much to Kamara's interest. Eugene reflects that his plan worked perfectly. But he's still not used to being the center of attention. Suddenly, a new face appears in the crowd. A young man calls out his name, and everyone turns to look. It's Felid, now cleaned up and looking like a proper noble. Elsewhere, under the cover of night, a man begs for his life. His desperate pleas are cut short by a brutal, shadowy attack. The attacker looks down at the mess, annoyed by the incompetence. It's Kamara, furious that the boy wasn't dealt with back in the village. Because of that failure, his entire plan has been derailed. His subordinate apologizes, but Kamara scoffs at the excuse. He grabs the man's face, questioning his very intelligence. His eyes glow with a cold, menacing light. He threatens to remove the man's eyes if they're just for decoration. Standard HR procedure, I'm sure. The other men can only watch in absolute terror. Kamara lets him go, pondering his next move. He can't just kill Eugene now that he's a celebrated guest. But a sinister idea begins to form in his mind. A plan that will also take care of the body disposal. His gaze falls on the sleeping Felid, his new target. Later, Eugene, now masked, explains the situation to the boy. Felid is in despair, realizing he was sent to the dungeon to die. What a warm family reunion. Eugene reminds him of the mercenaries who were supposedly attacked by wolves. He reveals they were likely sent by one of Felid's brothers. But Eugene tells him there is a way for him to survive this. A flicker of hope appears in the boy's eyes. Eugene makes his offer, become his servant. He explains that at 16, Felid is old enough to choose his own path. He can either wait for his brothers to finish the job, or he can fight back with everything he has. The day of the dungeon raid arrives, the massive gates looming before them. Galfredic briefs the party on their simple mission. Clear a path and retreat if a high-rank monster appears. In the back, a couple of porters are just happy they won't be on the front lines. One even plans to fake an injury to stay out of the fight entirely. But their departure is interrupted by Verthel, demanding to know where Felid is. A guard nervously points him in the right direction, where Felid is busy wishing Eugene a safe return. A sight that makes Verthel's blood boil. He storms over, shouting the boy's name, and angrily reminds him of his assigned position. Felid flinches, clearly terrified of his older brother. When the boy hesitates, Verthel grabs him by the arm and finds himself staring into Eugene's cold, unblinking eyes. He tries to drag Felid away, his patience completely gone. But his hand is stopped by a grip of solid steel. Verthel can only stare, stunned by the blatant defiance. Eugene calmly questions the logic of sending a novice into a dungeon. Verthel shoves him back, claiming it's just tough love. A likely story. He tells Eugene to know his place and stay out of family matters. But Eugene suggests that Verthel is the one who's out of line. He then drops a bombshell. Felid is now his servant, and he has a whole crowd of witnesses to back him up. He declares their bond is now thicker than blood, and a threat to the boy is a threat to him. He even offers a little pre-dungeon duel if Verthel disagrees. Verthel is speechless, demanding to know who gave him permission. Eugene points out that taking in the boy will only hinder his future. Meanwhile, the porters gossip about the knight's incredible skill. One jokes it would take a second lifetime to get that strong, further enraging Verthel. Just then, Kamara arrives to stir the pot, siding with Eugene. He reminds Verthel that Felid is an adult, free to choose his own path. Eugene knows that once you're a target, survival is never easy, and Verthel is left speechless, completely outmaneuvered. Eugene's lesson is simple. If you can't be strong, form a pack. Their little standoff is interrupted by a scout's report on the dungeon entrance. With the drama settled, Galfredic gives the order to proceed. The massive dungeon gates grind open. He offers a grim reminder. Their lives are their own. The mercenaries steel themselves for the horrors within, and with a final command, the entire party charges forward. From the entrance, Kamara offers a wave and a 4-day deadline. The gates seal shut, leaving them to their fate. They step into the suffocating darkness of the cavern, and are immediately swarmed by a horde of goblins. Galfredic carves a path through the chaos, but one soldier breaks, cursing his comrades for their incompetence. Galfredic roars at them to hold the formation, a real hands-on manager. He physically throws a man back into the fight, shouting orders. Archers let loose a volley of arrows, but the goblins are already dropping from the ceiling. The line breaks as the creatures swarm from every direction. One of the porters realizes this was a terrible career move. He decides to make a run for it back toward the entrance, only to find his path blocked by more glowing eyes. His escape is cut brutally short. A voice from the shadows calls him an idiot for his cowardice. Galfredic grabs another panicked soldier, telling him to get a grip. He shoves him back into the fray, ordering him to fight. The mercenaries struggle to hold their ground against the tide. Galfredic realizes this hastily assembled crew is not enough. A scout cries out that more monsters are on their way, and another confirms they're being flanked from behind. Just then, a calm voice offers to take the rear. Galfredic turns, warning Eugene not to go alone, but our boy is already a shadow vanishing into the darkness. Galfredic charges deeper into the cavern. He looks back, shouting at his struggling men. Suddenly, shadowy traps erupt from the stone floor. A goblin's weapon lies shattered in pieces. Galfredic orders Partek to cover his rear flank. He's stunned by how far Eugene has already gone. His eyes widen in complete disbelief. And just like that, Eugene reappears, holding a glowing flower. Galfredic can't believe he doesn't even know what it is. A true dungeon-crawling prodigy. He stands amidst the fallen, wondering how he's so strong. After the battle, the party tends to their wounded. A mercenary brings Eugene the collected mana crystals. He laments the small reward for so many kills. Eugene notes their blue color is different from the roamers. Mirian appears, calling the crystals small and disappointing. She explains that a monster's strength determines the crystal's size, and that powerful roamers like the one he fought are incredibly rare. Eugene realizes this dungeon crawl is a waste of his time. Just as Mirian asks about stronger monsters, he senses a new threat. He tells the exhausted party that their break is over. Galfredic rallies the men, threatening to punish any cowards. He tells Eugene he'll have to pull his weight at the front, because the next wave of monsters will be on another level. He explains that the dungeon's true masters use goblins as pawns, and they're about to face the intermediate-level monsters. The mercenaries tremble, knowing what lies even deeper. But Eugene's expression is cold and determined. He recalls consuming the red mana crystal of the Swamp Master, and the powerful ability he gained from it. He wonders what new power awaits if he consumes another. He announces he can hear at least 50 footsteps approaching. Galfredic looks on, impressed by his incredible senses. He offers Eugene a spear, asking if he'd like to do the honors. With a flick of his wrist, Eugene sends it flying. The spear becomes a beam of red light, causing a massive explosion. Galfredic gives the order for the entire party to charge. He tells the men to follow and support their new vanguard. But Eugene is already a blur, carving through a horde of orcs. The mercenaries rush forward, offering to assist him. He moves like a phantom, a whirlwind of death and shadow. He lands a brutal, precise strike on an orc's eye. The creature falls, its head completely crushed. He continues his rampage, a dance of pure destruction. He deflects a clumsy attack with his own blade, and cuts down another monster without breaking his stride. He stands amidst the carnage, a feral grin on his face. The mercenaries can only watch, their image of a noble knight shattering. His arm transforms, the black scales spreading across his skin. He plunges his hand directly into a monster's hide. They recall the stories of noble swordsmanship, of justice and honor, but this was nothing like the knights they knew. Even the seasoned warriors are frozen in place, completely stunned. Galfredic realizes this fighting style is far from admirable. It was the raw, untamed style of a bloodthirsty beast. The battle is over, the cavern floor littered with the fallen. A medic desperately tends to a wounded soldier. The aftermath is grim, with casualties on both sides. Galfredic admits that most of his men can't push on. He knows it's not physical fatigue, but the mental shock of what they saw. He concludes that for now they can't advance any further. Galfredic suggests they withdraw, having met their objective. But Eugene isn't tired yet, calling it a waste to turn back. With no other choice, Galfredic rallies the terrified men to press on. Eugene's hand tightens on the fallen monster. He tells Galfredic to lead the main party out of the dungeon. From here on, only he and his mercenaries will proceed. Raban and the others immediately volunteer to join him. Galfredic wonders if this was an act of consideration for the exhausted soldiers. He realizes this man is redefining what it means to be a knight. And so a smaller, more determined party ventures deeper. Robin immediately regrets his decision, admitting he's terrified. He tries to reassure himself that Eugene can handle anything. Famous last words. But his foot crushes something small on the cavern floor. He looks down, a flicker of alarm in his eyes. It's just a spider. A very dead spider. And it has a whole lot of very large, very angry relatives. They're cave-great spiders, a swarm that uses acidic poison. Raban charges forward, trying to hold his ground. Partek shouts for them to fall back, but Eugene questions the order. He's already carving a path through the horde. To him, these numbers are nothing. Inspired, the mercenaries dive back into the fight. Eugene and Partek cover each other's backs in the chaos, but Robin is quickly overwhelmed, crying out for help. A spider lunges, its fangs bared for the kill, but a gloved hand stops it cold. Eugene's blade flashes, saving the young mercenary once again. Robin can only stare, completely stunned. Eugene looks down at him, his red eyes burning with intensity. He shoves the boy aside and continues his one-man war. Robin is in awe, wondering if Eugene is even human. He suggests they've done enough and should head back. But Partek is frozen, sensing a new, greater threat. His face fills with dread as he realizes what's coming. He recalls that some monsters have higher-ranked variants, and based on its sheer size, this is one of them. A monstrous spider lord descends from the ceiling. It's a true nightmare, the master of this cavern. Partek urges Eugene to retreat, knowing they're outmatched. But Eugene simply calls out to his men. He orders them to fall back, claiming this one as his own. Partek is stunned by the overwhelming pressure he feels. His very instincts are screaming at him to run for his life. Mirian notes they've surrendered to the sheer gap in power. Eugene asks if this new foe is as strong as the Swamp Master. Mirian confirms it's likely even stronger than that, which means its mana crystal will be an even greater prize. The Spider Lord lets out a terrifying roar, but Eugene just grins, ready to open his new treasure chest. Sometime later, a small spider descends from a web, only to be sliced in two by an unseen force. Eugene, now dressed as a noble, lowers his finger. He holds the mana crystal he took from the dungeon's lord. It has granted him a second ability, camouflage. By combining it with his scales, he can now walk in the sun. Finally, a vampire who can tan. A voice asks why he's no longer wearing his mask. The scene shifts to a celebration with Galfredic and the others. Eugene is the guest of honor at a lavish party. The noble ladies are captivated by his heroic tales. Mirian teases him as they praise his beauty, asking if he's part elf. But Eugene thinks this new elf theory is just making things more complicated. Galfredic, however, is convinced it's the only explanation that makes sense. He recalls Eugene's sharp eyes and keen hearing in the pitch-black dungeon, not to mention his monstrous strength and inhuman agility. He knew from the start that Eugene was no ordinary human, and he loudly celebrates his brilliant deduction that our boy has elven blood. He asks how someone so striking could have hidden in this region for so long. Eugene offers a vague, charming smile in response. He claims he never really tried to hide himself on purpose, a response that leaves the ladies swooning and Galfredic completely baffled. Galfredic notes his stoic delivery, which only makes the crowd love him more. Eugene realizes this convenient lie might actually come in handy. He reflects that the mana crystal gave him more than just a new power. The moment the tattoo disappeared, a flood of new memories hit him. He saw himself lying in a strange, unfamiliar bed. A woman's gentle hand was holding his own, and in that unfamiliar room, everyone's eyes were fixed on him. He wonders who the woman in that vision was, or if those memories even belonged to him in the first place. For a man with no past, the only thing he's ever known for sure is interrupted by Raban shouting his name. The young mercenary is desperately pleading for help. Galfredic has him in a headlock, calling him useless dead weight. Raban argues that Eugene isn't human, and any normal person would have fled. Galfredic twists his words, asking if he's calling their new hero a monster. Eugene tunes them out, lost in his own thoughts again. The name Eugene is his only anchor to the past, but now he has a theory. If he can erase the remaining tattoos one by one, he might finally learn the truth, beyond the lies of being a knight or an elf. He might finally discover who he truly was. A box is presented to the two knights. Inside is a gruesome certificate to prove Eugene's status. He accepts the official scroll, his new identity now secure. Elsewhere, Kamara watches as his father's health fails. The old lord worries about his ambitious younger son. Kamara promises to protect the domain. A likely story. With his final words, the lord gives some parting advice. He tells Felid a true leader must look after his people, and with that, Lord Terwin passes away. The court gathers to mourn their fallen leader, but not everyone shares the same sentiment. Kamara can barely contain his triumphant rage. As the sun sets on Rose Castle, Galfredic prepares to take his leave. He asks Eugene if he truly intends to stay behind. Eugene confirms he's heading back into the dungeon. Galfredic laments the missed opportunity for a new connection. He reaches out his hand to his newfound rival. It was an honor, he says, to cross swords with him. He hopes their next meeting will be as allies. Eugene considers the gesture for a moment. Their hands meet in the middle, a handshake sealing their mutual respect. As Galfredick rides off, Eugene tells his men to prepare. Felid is confused, asking why they're leaving too. Partek explains a fundamental rule. Knights ride horses. They're off to get Eugene a proper mount and sell their loot. Felid is fired up, ready to serve his new master. But Eugene shuts him down with a cold dismissal. The boy can only stare, completely heartbroken. At a bustling port, a young man struggles under the weight of his cargo. Their journey has brought them to Marin, the greatest commerce city in the kingdom. And as they arrive, their reputation has already preceded them. Raban proudly boasts to the crowd about their massive haul of dungeon loot. He's a natural hype man. The onlookers are stunned, recognizing the name of the legendary Jan Eugene. Raban barks orders at a young porter, who struggles with the heavy sacks. The boy wipes the sweat from his brow, clearly exhausted. He looks up, wondering what's taking their leader so long. Inside, Eugene and Partek are deep in negotiations. A man named Billmore introduces himself, ready to handle their goods. Eugene listens as the man drones on, surprised Partek's connections are this legitimate. He knows this is a valuable link to a world he doesn't understand. But just as Billmore makes his pitch, the door is thrown open. A well-dressed man barges in, demanding to see Sir Eugene. Both Eugene and Partek are caught completely off guard. Partek leans in, warning that things are about to get complicated. He explains the newcomer is a secretary to the company's deputy manager. In other words, he's a much bigger deal than the man they're talking to, and he's likely here to try and swindle them with a lower price. Partek advises caution, a word Eugene quietly considers. The secretary, Grail, shoves Billmore aside with contempt. He addresses Eugene, acknowledging the rumors spreading through the city. He dismisses the stories as a simple tactic to inflate the goods' value. He invites Eugene to leave, thinking he can easily manipulate this simple knight. But a sudden, chilling pressure fills the room. He meets Eugene's gaze, a silent and unnerving stare. Grail quickly backpedals, offering a more formal introduction. Eugene questions his offer of a better opportunity. The man stammers, clarifying it's a chance to sell on better terms, but Eugene's piercing red eye asks the question again, without a single word. Grail is stunned, realizing the deputy manager herself is involved. He quickly apologizes for his rudeness, and with that, he makes a very hasty exit. Billmore is moved to tears, thanking Eugene for his loyalty. He pledges his full support, an offer Eugene is happy to hear. The merchant eagerly asks when they can begin. Eugene tells him the time is now, and to get out of his office.
Elsewhere, Grail reports his failure to his superior.
The deputy manager isn't surprised, noting the pride of knights. She decides they'll just have to play a different kind of game, especially against a poor knight who doesn't even own a horse. A classic burn. She orders her men to deliver a gift he can't possibly refuse. Back on the street, Felid is shocked by his new orders. Eugene tells him to stay behind and manage their sales. The boy asks why he's being left behind once more. He wonders if it's because he's not strong enough to follow. Eugene simply asks him what a retainer's duty is. The boy correctly answers that it's to offer support. And Eugene explains that's exactly what he needs him to do. His mission is to build their fortune while Eugene is away. He'll learn the ways of business from their new merchant ally. Felid realizes he owes Eugene his life, and this is his way to repay him. Eugene even promises to teach him the sword once they have the funds. He tells the boy that one day he'll need his support in battle too. The promise leaves Felid completely stunned, but his expression quickly turns to one of resolve. He accepts his mission without another moment of hesitation. With that settled, the group heads back into the city. Eugene notes how quickly their new fortune has vanished. Looks like someone needs a budget. Even Miriam feels the sting of their empty coin purse. As they walk, a glint of light catches Eugene's eye. Before them stands a magnificent suit of plate armor. Partek calls it a knight's dream, but Eugene just sees a price tag. He learns it's a treasure beyond the reach of most nobles. Their window shopping is cut short by a frantic Raban. He screams that a massive horde of roamers is attacking the city. They're breaking through the eastern forest, overwhelming the local guilds. Partek sees an opportunity, but Eugene isn't convinced. Raban begins to explain the very simple logic. Unlike dungeons, roamer hunts are pure, untaxed profit. In other words, it's a giant pile of cash just waiting for them. Our boy's got his priorities straight. That's all the convincing Eugene needs. But just as they're about to leave, a voice calls out. It's Grail, looking a lot less composed than before. He presents a warhorse, a gift from the deputy manager. A magnificent thoroughbred, a steed fit for a true noble. Eugene questions why she would give him something so valuable. The man flinches under that familiar, unnerving stare. He knows there are always strings attached. Grail insists it's just a small token of appreciation. The horse seems to disagree. Without another word, Eugene accepts the gift. Now properly equipped, he's ready to make some money. Robin asks what they should do since their leader just left them in the dust. Partek tells the idiot to start running. Grail watches them go, his mission a surprising success. They arrive at the eastern forest, already crawling with monsters. The goblins sense an approaching threat, but they're no match for the speed of his new mount. He carves a path through the horde without slowing down. Mirian notes the sheer scale of the attack, a sign that the front line has already fallen. He calls this good news, because he'd rather not share the loot. With that, he charges deeper into the forest, his new mount thundering across the ground, a blur of speed under the midday sun. He rides toward the sounds of battle, where a lone knight is holding the line, a blonde warrior completely surrounded. The horde closes in, ready to overwhelm her. Her own horse panics, throwing her to the ground, and promptly abandons her to her fate. Great teamwork. She tries to make a heroic last stand, but her bravado quickly turns to panic as the monsters stare down at their cornered prey. Her cry for help echoing through the clearing, but just as they lunge, a flash of steel cuts through the horde. Eugene arrives, a phantom of death on horseback. He carves a path through the monsters with ease. The blonde knight can only watch in disbelief as he single-handedly clears the area around her. She thanks him, asking for his name, completely oblivious to the monster behind her. She asks for his name again, still smiling. Eugene questions if that's really important right now. She grins, admitting he has a point, and promises to ask again once they survive. Later, she recounts a very dramatic version of events, claiming she and the mysterious knight saved the city, and the crowd eagerly asks for the hero's name. She points to the crowd, announcing the hero's name, Jan Eugene. The name ripples through the onlookers, who recognize him from the Terwin dungeon raid. And just like that, the entire city is chanting his name. From a high window, a figure in red watches the celebration. It's the mayor of Marin, Louis Palin, who notes that Eugene's fame is growing too fast. But his granddaughter, Priscilla, assures him everything is under control. She hopes he becomes even more famous because the higher you fly, the harder you fall. Elsewhere, Felid discusses business with an associate. Priscilla reveals she's investigated the boy, learning he's a hidden child of the Terwin family. The mayor's eyes light up with a new, cunning idea. She explains that Eugene is trying to sponsor the boy, building a fortune for him. The mayor sees her plan, to use this connection to build a relationship with the Terwins. He decides to send Eugene a gift, a proper reward for the city's hero. Priscilla thanks him, her own scheme falling perfectly into place. Later that night, under a pale moon, Priscilla muses that the thirsty will always seek water. She sips from her cup, explaining a merchant's true purpose, and that is to dig a well before the right person gets thirsty. She waits for her target to come to her. A door handle turns, signaling his arrival. She expects him to walk in without resistance or doubt. She offers a welcoming, predatory smile, and in walks Eugene, now clad in magnificent red and black armor. He's here to offer his thanks, confirming her identity. She sizes him up, a beautiful man with the strength to crush a troll. She can already tell he's different from any knight she's ever met. She compliments the armor, a gift from the mayor himself. It's forged from special steel and ogre bones, strong enough to repel a dragon's fang. Eugene simply says he'll count on its sturdiness in the next dungeon. He thanks her for the lodging, noting his mercenaries are now ready for anything. She offers him her gratitude and a brand new proposal, but Eugene cuts her off, announcing his immediate departure. He promises to return after clearing the Terwin dungeon, but then reconsiders, saying this might be their last meeting after all. He's only interested in collecting mana crystals this time. And with a simple goodbye, he turns to leave her fuming. He stops at her command, but doesn't turn around. She regains her composure, asking if he's sure he wants to leave. She calls him out, telling him not to play dumb. She lists all the gifts he's received: armor, a horse, fine lodging, and points out that his sales don't even cover half the cost. She asks if he truly doesn't understand that everything has a price, or if she needs to remind the people of Marin that their so-called hero is a man with no honor. She lays her trap, asking if he has anything to say for himself, but Eugene just offers a small, knowing smirk. He finds the entire situation ridiculous. She ordered him around, gave him unwanted gifts, and now demands payment. And he asks if a mere merchant is really trying to threaten him. The sheer pressure of his gaze leaves her speechless. Her associates can only watch in shock as her plan completely crumbles. He clarifies that his contract is with Billmore, not her. He agrees that everything has a price, and warns her she'll soon find out what his is. He paints a new picture for her, the city persecuting its own hero. A story that will ensure no knight ever helps Marin again. Partek offers a backhanded apology as they turn to leave. She realizes that with a different approach, they could have been allies. Billmore, caught in the middle, tries to salvage the situation. But Eugene is already gone, leaving her to deal with the consequences. Priscilla bows her head, offering a formal apology. She admits her judgment was clouded and asks to start over. She proposes a new deal, promising it will be in his favor. In her mind, she notes how different he is from other knights. She realizes this man is far too dangerous to toy with, and her merchant's instincts scream that she can't let him go. A new, determined smile spreads across her face. Eugene, still seated, agrees to at least hear her out, but he warns her that the offer better be a good one. She thanks him for the opportunity to make her pitch. Later, the party rides through the forest looking much more official. Partek congratulates him on securing such a favorable contract. He explains the Palin Company's influence is too vast to ignore. Their offer of unlimited dungeon access is an incredible opportunity. Partek praises his brilliant negotiation tactics, but Eugene looks annoyed. He simply says he was just speaking his mind. Our boy, the accidental genius. But their path is suddenly blocked by another group of mercenaries. Their leader mocks Eugene's appearance, questioning his skill. Mirian is personally offended as Partek calls out to their leader. A familiar face steps forward. Kamara, the new Lord Terwin. Eugene dismounts, acknowledging the man's new title. Kamara explains that his brother hired new mercenaries, but something feels off. He recalls the last group, the ones supposedly killed by wolves, and notes this new crew gives off the same unsavory vibe. Eugene's eye narrows, processing the new information. Kamara then makes his offer, for Eugene to lead the dungeon party. The mercenary leader steps forward, clearly unhappy with the arrangement. He asks if he'll become commander if Eugene dies in the dungeon. Well, that's not ominous at all. Eugene's men are stunned by the blatant threat. The man justifies his words, claiming they must prepare for the worst. Eugene accepts the challenge with a cold, knowing look. The man jokes that if he falls, his bald second-in-command can take over. Mirian is personally offended by the insult, but Eugene already knows the score. This is all part of Verthel's plan to have him eliminated in the dungeon. But Eugene remembers his past and he will not be a pawn again. Inside the dungeon, the party is immediately swarmed by goblins. Eugene moves like a phantom, cutting down the first wave. He carves a path through the horde with brutal efficiency, his blade a blur of motion against the tide of monsters. He doesn't even break a sweat. The mercenary leader watches, admitting the rumors were true. Eugene is single-handedly doing the work of the entire party. His presence is like an impenetrable shield for the men behind him. The leader knows he just needs to wait for the right moment. Just one chance to land a single poison-laced strike. Eugene announces they're entering a more dangerous area. He warns that only those who can keep up should follow. The mercenaries cheer, eager to prove themselves. Or so it seems. But their leader stops his own men, telling them to wait. He explains that Sir Eugene has a different plan in mind. And so, Eugene walks into the darkness alone. He reflects that this is far less entertaining without Galfredic. He recalls the red-haired knight's confident smile. He was an excellent leader who always took the front line. With him, even this weak party might have stood a chance. Now Eugene finds himself curious. He wonders how Galfredic would handle this situation. As the mercenaries prepare their ambush from the shadows, they surround him, their leader glad he's finally dropped the act. Eugene agrees and summons a massive water elemental to greet them. The elemental unleashes a torrent of water, extinguishing their torches. The men panic, shocked that this knight can also use magic. Plunged into darkness, they stumble around in complete confusion. One complains he can't see and is immediately silenced by a shadow. The leader shouts for them to fight back against the unseen attacker. But in the chaos, they begin to strike down their own allies. The cavern fills with the sounds of their own men falling. And through it all, Eugene moves like a phantom of death. Team-building exercise going great, I see. The leader realizes this darkness only makes Eugene's hunt easier. He desperately tries to activate a magic light stone, but the stone fails to ignite, leaving him sweating in the dark. He freezes, wondering why everything has suddenly gone quiet. A single footstep echoes from the shadows behind him, and Eugene appears, asking if he needs a little fire. He offers to help, noting how inconvenient human eyes are. He then crushes the man's light stone in his hand. The flash illuminates the carnage of the fallen mercenaries. Eugene asks if he can now see who was hunting whom. The leader can only curse, realizing he was the prey all along. Eugene's fangs are bared, his patience finally at an end. Back at Rose Castle, a storm rages through the night. A figure walks purposefully down a long, dark hall. Kamara calls out, demanding to know what's happening. Eugene stands by a window, his back to the commotion. His expression is cold, his mission now complete. Kamara asks if the rumors he's heard are true. He demands to know what's going on, gesturing to the floor. where Eugene has just dropped the last surviving mercenary. Kamara is stunned to see the mercenary captain, Maverick. The man confesses he tried to kill Eugene on Verthel's orders, and Kamara looks absolutely thrilled. Verthel storms in, demanding to know how far Kamara will go. He insists Kamara is the one who's lost his senses. But Kamara just grins, telling Maverick to explain himself properly. Under Eugene's influence, the man begins a new, twisted confession. He declares that a wretch like him deserves to die, and with a sudden lunge, he throws himself through the window. Plummeting from the high castle tower, the brothers can only watch in shock, shouting his name. His body lands hard on a statue in the courtyard below. Well, that's one way to clean up a loose end. Kamara claims the man went mad, asking if his words can be trusted, but Verthel sees right through it, noting Kamara's relief. The accusation hits its mark, and Kamara's composure cracks. He deflects, accusing Eugene of slander and having no knightly pride. Eugene asks Verthel to swear on his honor that he's innocent. The knight stammers, insisting that of course he is. Eugene's gauntlet tightens as he makes his decision. He demands a trial by combat, staking both their honors on the outcome. He smiles, letting Verthel know the truth will be decided by the sword. Verthel can only grit his teeth, completely trapped in the lie. Soon, the entire castle is buzzing with news of the duel. The servants whisper that Verthel has finally gone too far, and that his target was the celebrated Sir Jan Eugene. Verthel stands in the courtyard, his expression grim, while Kamara watches from above, enjoying the show. An official declares that the duel will determine the truth, and Eugene stands ready, his own blade reflecting the setting sun. Verthel lets out a roar and charges forward. He swings his sword with all his might, but Eugene remains perfectly still, waiting for the strike. He stops the blade with a single punch, shattering the stone beneath him. The knight's blade grinds against Eugene's gauntlet, but Eugene's expression is one of pure contempt. He remembers this man's voice from his past life, and he can't believe this was the man who hunted him for a decade. Verthel is thrown back, his confidence shattering. Eugene presses the attack with blinding speed. The knight can barely keep up with the onslaught. His sword is sent flying from his grasp, and a brutal kick sends him to the stone floor. Eugene stands over him, ordering him to get up. Verthel's desperation turns into a manic grin. Looks like someone snapped. He was known for his skill with a blade, but this time, even the common folk can see the truth. From the castle entrance, Kamara watches his brother fall. Verthel realizes the gap in their strength is insurmountable. Eugene is simply on another level. His transformed hand moves in for the final blow, but Kamara finally steps in, calling an end to the duel. Eugene turns, questioning if it's truly over. Kamara holds his brother back, telling Eugene to stop. He declares that Verthel can no longer fight, making Eugene the winner. But Verthel refuses to accept his defeat. Kamara orders him to stand down. He tells him to accept his crimes and face judgment. The knight completely breaks down, screaming in denial, his rage now focused entirely on Eugene. He blames our boy for his downfall. Classic villain monologue, claiming his life was perfect before he arrived. But Eugene's blade is already moving, drawing a single, perfect line across his neck. Verthel lies paralyzed on the ground, unable to move. He looks up to see his brother Kamara standing over him. Kamara tells him he should have taken the mercy that was offered. And with a final brutal strike, he ends his brother's life. Partek and Robin can only watch the grim outcome from the crowd. With the duel settled, Eugene and his men turn to leave. Kamara watches them go, his family's power now firmly in his grasp. Sometime later, they've returned to the bustling port city of Marin. Mirian asks if he feels any pity for the man he just used. She notes that Verthel was his first familiar, and he was discarded so easily. But Eugene feels nothing, recalling the man's weak will. He explains that leaving him alive would have exposed his secret. Besides, he would never let an enemy who challenged him live. Our boy holds a grudge. Mirian insists he needs slaves, but Eugene has no interest in such things. He knows that turning weaklings into familiars is just a liability. As he reaches for a door, he hears a familiar name from inside. He enters to find Priscilla, who's surprised he's been back for 2 weeks. Billmore and Priscilla both greet him warmly. The merchant congratulates him on clearing the dungeon, but Eugene cuts him off, demanding to know what happened to Galfredic. Priscilla's expression turns serious as she prepares to explain. She tells him that 2 weeks ago, Galfredic joined a different raid. He went missing after entering a dangerous labyrinth all by himself. They searched the lower levels but found nothing, fearing the worst. Eugene's eyes narrow, a new mission already forming. He rides out immediately, thundering through the forest. His journey takes him to the grand estate of House Evergrow, where a young noble welcomes him from a high balcony. Eugene thanks him for the reception but insists the matter is urgent. The man introduces himself as Jevin Evergrow and invites him inside. Eugene questions if Galfredic really acted on his own. Jevin confirms it, explaining the upper levels are forbidden territory, a place his family hasn't dared to enter for a century. It's the domain of the so-called Master of the Labyrinth. A new knight chimes in, blaming Galfredic's recklessness. This guy seems like a real charmer. Jevin introduces him as Sir Lugates, their house knight. Lugates smirks, noting he's heard of Eugene's duel. He boasts that he also defeated Galfredic in a tournament. But Eugene cuts him off, asking if that's important right now. The standing knight apologizes, admitting Galfredic is too valuable to lose. Jevin recalls that Eugene and Galfredic were close friends. Eugene reluctantly agrees, remembering the man's over-the-top personality. Jevin leans in, promising their full support for his rescue mission. He explains their grim history with the labyrinth's upper levels. Every party they've sent has vanished without a trace. Because of this, anyone missing for a month is declared dead. And Galfredic has already been gone for 3 weeks. With only 1 week left, all hope will be lost. Eugene's eyes glow with resolve, his mind made up. He stands to leave immediately, but Jevin stops him. He's told to wait 3 days while they prepare a new party. Eugene quietly accepts the offer of rest. But Jevin has one more thing to add to the deal. They've hired a new mage who will be assigned to his party. Later, walking through the city, Mirian complains about Lugates. She calls their story a load of nonsense, and Eugene agrees. He knows their explanation doesn't add up. He recalls Galfredic's plan to secure an appointment with the Count. The man was supposed to be rewarded, not sent on a suicide mission. Eugene wonders why the family would suddenly change their minds. Mirian overhears a rumor about another knight lost in the labyrinth. Nearby, a robed figure preaches of a ritual to summon a savior. He calls for a messiah to save them, but the crowd just calls him a cultist. Eugene notes the strange atmosphere, a town on the edge of panic. A young follower shoves a pamphlet into his hands, urging him to believe. He reads of wild beasts dying from earthquakes near the labyrinth. He wonders if the labyrinth collapsed and why Galfredic would enter. With that, he decides they're heading for the labyrinth right now. A new voice agrees, saying 3 days is too long to wait. The hooded mage turns, surprised to find a vampire in their midst. Eugene's eyes flash, his guard instantly up. The mage notes that vampires were supposedly wiped out by the Holy Knights. And yet here he is, walking around in broad daylight. Her hand glows with a sudden crimson energy. As the cultist continues his sermon, a new conflict is brewing. But her hand is stopped cold by an iron grip. Eugene demands to know her identity and how she knew what he was. He lifts her into the air, threatening to end her if she doesn't talk. The mage struggles, her confidence completely gone. She stammers out a single name, Blood Shadow. Mirian recognizes the term, a flicker of memory in her mind. And then it hits her, a look of pure shock on her face. She flies between them, shouting for Eugene to stop. He looks down, completely confused by the interruption. Mirian explains she's from a school of mages who serve vampires. And with that revelation, the mage promptly faints. Great first impression. Later, she's awake and furious, yelling at him for his methods. Eugene calmly points out that she was the one who started with the villain monologue. She collects herself, offering a more formal introduction. She is Cira Noir, and her school has an affinity for sensing his kind. She explains that Jevin sent her to find him, and asks about his supposed deep friendship with Galfredic. Our boy is already planning the man's eulogy. She reveals she was part of the party when Galfredic vanished. Eugene asks her to explain exactly what happened. She agrees, saying she joined the raid for monster parts. The labyrinth was old, but the lower levels were considered safe. But as they advanced, a massive earthquake shook the cavern. The ground beneath her feet gave way and she began to fall. A hand reached out, grabbing her at the last second. It was Galfredic, who had been guarding their rear. He saved her, but fell into the chasm in her place. She recalls the other knights blaming Galfredic for the disaster. They were convinced he'd opened the forbidden upper levels. She felt she had to tell his friend the truth of his sacrifice. Though she admits she never expected that friend to be a vampire, Eugene realizes her story contradicts what Jevin told him. He wonders if Jevin lied, or if the truth was twisted. Cira Noir then reveals there was something else she saw. Deep in the pit where the red-haired knight had fallen was a massive, glowing eye etched into the stone. Eugene's own eyes widen at the mention of the symbol. Cira Noir connects it to the flyers from the cultists in the plaza. He remembers the strange pamphlet he was given. The symbol on it was an exact match. The cultists spoke of welcoming a savior with blood and flesh, and their leader declared that he would soon awaken. 3 days later, the rescue party is finally ready. Jevin asks if Eugene is excited to see his close friend. Eugene coldly replies that he'd rather not transport a body. Lugates scoffs, admitting Galfredic isn't one to die easily. He reasons that if Galfredik survived 3 weeks, he can last 3 more days. But their departure is interrupted by a group of hooded figures. They introduce themselves as Templars from a monastery under House Evergrow. They were so moved by his loyalty, they wished to join the fight. Our boy the vampire is now a holy inspiration. Lou Gates is surprised, noting that Templars rarely take an interest in knights. He even suggests Eugene could become a holy knight. Miriam finds this absolutely hilarious. Lou Gates flashes a wide, unsettling grin. But Eugene's expression remains cold and suspicious. As they finally reach the labyrinth, he tells Partek to step aside for a moment. The party enters a vast, crystalline cavern. Miriam is thrilled by the sheer amount of water energy in the air. Partek explains this is an artificial space designed for survival, but he warns them that monsters still lurk in the shadows. Eugene considers that a place like this might make a decent hideout. Lugatis agrees, calling it a fitting place for evil to hide. A little on the nose, don't you think? He compliments Eugene's skill, noting they haven't lost a single man. He then questions Eugene's trust in Galfredik, telling him not to be so impatient. He insists that right now, he is the one who should be trusted. He claims that House Evergrow has fully mapped out the labyrinth's traps. But Eugene points out that they still suffer casualties every time. Lou Gates dismisses them as necessary offerings to hope. And with a sinister smile, he promises they'll all make it out alive. Eugene's eyes glow, sensing the danger in those words. Just then, the entire cavern begins to shake violently. Lou Gates shouts that the labyrinth's layout is starting to change. He points Eugene toward a specific path. This is a section where the walls shift, revealing a shortcut to the upper levels. Cyrano cries out, confirming the earthquake is real. Eugene looks around, asking where this shortcut is supposed to be. Lou Gates grins, telling him it's right where he's standing. Eugene realizes this was no earthquake, but a trap all along. Cyrano panics, wondering what their goal is before spotting something ahead. Eugene's eyes widen, his composure finally breaking. Before them is Galfredik, bound and broken on a stone cross. Without a second thought, Eugene leaps into the darkness. He lands on the platform, his gaze fixed on his fallen friend. He reaches out, checking for any sign of life. He confirms that Galfredik is still breathing and can be saved. But Miriam calls out, sensing that something is terribly wrong. She points below, explaining she's felt a strange presence for a while. A sudden gust of wind rips through the chamber. They look around, trying to find the source of the disturbance. From the chasm below, a menacing red light begins to glow, and 2 massive, burning eyes open in the darkness. A monstrous head emerges, wreathed in violet flame. Its massive tail slams against the cavern wall. A colossal beast rises, the true master of this labyrinth. Looks like the welcoming committee is here. As Cyrano panics, Eugene orders her to protect Galfredik. The beast smashes its fists into the ground, ready for a fight. Eugene plants his foot, preparing to meet the challenge head-on. He launches himself forward, a blur of red and black. His eyes are locked on the target, his focus absolute. He soars through the air, his sword held high. His body twists, preparing for a devastating strike. Cyrano cries out in warning as the beast prepares to counter. Its massive arm swings with impossible speed. Bringing down a weapon the size of a building, Eugene clings to a ledge, questioning what the monster is doing. A massive glowing eye appears in the sky above. The beast's weapon slams down, shattering the very ground beneath them. The platform shatters, sending Galfredik plummeting into the abyss. Eugene's eyes burn with a cold, focused fury. He dives after him without a moment's hesitation. But the beast's massive hand closes in to intercept him. He screams his friend's name, his voice echoing in the chasm. Just then, Cyrano casts a spell from the ledge above. He roars at her, questioning what she's doing. She identifies the creature as a minotaur, a high-rank monster. She warns that even a vampire could fall to such a beast. But Eugene's resolve doesn't waver for an instant. He stops her mid-sentence, his blade inches from her face. He tells the maid she has overstepped her boundaries. She apologizes, but insists he can't just charge in to die. She begs him to calm down and think before he acts. She panics, realizing the labyrinth is far more dangerous than they thought. Eugene lands safely on a lower platform. He notes that he underestimated her earth magic. Suddenly, Lugitz appears, a smug grin on his face. His eyes gleam with a cold, calculating light. Cyrano realizes he never intended to save Galfredik at all, and a transformed hand grabs him by the throat. Eugene accuses him of being the one behind this entire trap. Lugatz plays innocent, claiming he was only helping. What a guy. He calls Eugene rude, his own composure never breaking. But Eugene's grip tightens, his power flaring. His eyes burn with the promise of a very painful end. But Lugitz counters, a strange magic glowing in his hand. Eugene is shocked by the sudden display of brute strength. He reveals the source of his power isn't his own. Cyranoir recognizes it as a formula for inheriting someone else's power. She explains it's a forbidden spell for inheriting power. But Lugat scoffs, calling it an excuse to monopolize strength. He declares that he and his followers are the chosen ones. A classic villain monologue. Eugene finally understands the man's cheap trick. He used borrowed power and then boasted about it. And now, Eugene is going to teach him a lesson in humility. He lunges forward, his red aura flaring to life. Their powers collide in a blinding flash of energy. Cyranoir is stunned, wondering if any ordinary vampire could be this strong. Eugene realizes his opponent has also been hiding his true strength. Lugates meets his charge with a confident grin. Their fists connect in another explosive clash. Lugates declares that he has no intention of holding back. He sends Cyranoir and her companion flying into the chasm. He reminds Eugene that every trap in this place has been mapped out. And with a final, chilling smile, he tells him to die. But Eugene screams out a name, calling for help. A blast of blue energy erupts from below, stopping his fall. He lands safely, glaring up at his would-be killer. His eyes burn with a cold, murderous intent. Lugates peeks over the edge, surprised to see him alive. He barely manages to block Eugene's counterattack. A thin line of blood appears on his cheek. His expression shifts, his confidence finally shaken. He admits that Eugene is far stronger than he ever imagined, and that using Galfredic as bait was the right choice. With a manic grin, he declares the final sacrifice will be offered. Later, Cyranoir wakes up amidst the carnage, realizing Lugates killed his own men. She sees Eugene holding the broken body of Galfredic. He turns to her, asking if she can save him, but she admits healing isn't her specialty. Eugene's voice is ice, demanding a real answer. The young mage can only look on in despair, but she agrees to do everything in her power to help. Just then, Mirian reports that they're completely trapped. Eugene realizes they've been sealed in the labyrinth's final chamber. Mirian explains this is what she was trying to warn him about. Even with all the water energy, she can't control the liquid here, especially not this strange, unsettling pool of blood. Eugene's gaze falls on the crimson pool. He recognizes the glowing eyes etched into the stone walls. Mirian reveals a grim truth. The owner of this blood is still alive, and with that, the entire chamber begins to erupt. A monstrous form rises from the depths of the pool. The Minotaur returns, wreathed in a new violet flame. Looks like round 2 is on. Cyranoir can only watch in terror as she tends to Galfredic. Eugene tells Mirian to find them a way out of this mess. He stands alone against the towering, resurrected beast. He knows Galfredic is still completely vulnerable. His first priority is to stop that thing from moving. And with a roar, he charges into the fray. He unleashes a storm of crimson energy slashes. The attacks rain down on the monster's hide. He presses the attack with everything he has. He dodges a brutal counter from the beast's shadowy arm. His blade clashes against the monster's tough hide. He holds his ground, his sword locked against the creature. But the Minotaur prepares a new kind of attack, unleashing a massive beam of pure energy from its maw. The blast sends Eugene hurtling backward, but he twists in midair, his arm already transforming for a counter. He struggles against the overwhelming force of the beast. His arm transforms, wreathed in crimson energy. He leaps back, dodging a blast of violet flame, and lands on a piece of rubble, facing the towering monster. He realizes his normal sword can't even scratch its hide. So, if a normal weapon won't work, he'll just have to make one himself. A massive, jagged blade of pure blood takes shape in his hand. His eyes burn with a new, deadly resolve. He leaps into the air, his new weapon held high, twisting his body for a devastating downward slash. He brings the blood sword down with all his might, but even that powerful strike was too shallow. The Minotaur counters with a brutal punch, apparently unimpressed, sending Eugene flying across the cavern. The impact shatters the stone floor beneath him. He barely manages to catch himself on the cavern wall, just as the beast is struck by a beam of light from above. Cyranoir desperately tries to offer support from the ledge. She calls out to the unconscious Galfredic, begging him to wake up and help his friend. Eugene realizes the mage's warning was right all along. These high-rank monsters are on a completely different level. The Minotaur's eye glows, preparing another attack. It unleashes another massive energy blast, but Eugene realizes something is terribly wrong. The attack isn't aimed at him, but at his allies. He moves in a blur of red, intercepting the blast. Cyranoir can only cry out his name in terror. He stands battered but alive, his fangs bared in defiance. He's faced with a familiar feeling, utter powerlessness. The beast's hand comes down to crush him, a fate he should be used to. But as he looks up, he questions his own reaction. The blow connects, and he wonders why this pain feels so much worse. He's sent flying, his body finally giving out. He lies broken on the ground, his strength completely gone. His gaze falls on his fallen friend, still being tended to by the mage. He sees the state Galfredic is in, broken and unconscious, but then a flicker of movement as Galfredic's eye snaps open. And in that moment, Eugene finally understands why it hurts so much.